Ladies and gentlemen, it is 7 p.m. Pacific time on the Shadow Knows Network, and we are live once again from Professor Xavier's toy store. Now, whether or not that's my background or Chet's background, but tons of Marvel and X-Men, and we are excited as our main topic of the evening is X-Men. We are just a week away from Deadpool, Wolverine, and I'm sure there's going to be tons of X-Men in that movie. The hype is real. The new trailer was released, the final trailer and the tease revealing a character that we'll talk about. But will the X-Men work in the MCU? Well, we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly in the X-Men franchise. So we'll talk through it. And then we'll also say, we're not going to do an elimination bracket, but we're just going to have an open discussion of who's the best mutant of all time.
Oh, man.
And you all are probably thinking Wolverine, but the answers may shock you. And also, who's the best X-Men artist of all time? You comic heads, who did it the best? We're going to talk about that. Plus, tons of other trailer drops, the Terminator animated series. And then, we are slowly going towards San Diego Comic-Con. And what's been the least impressive SDCC toy exclusive? A lot more to talk about this evening on the special episode of X-Men here on Pixels, Plastic, and Ink. Wow. Well, I always get excited about that intro. How you all doing, gentlemen? Another Friday night with you all again.
Yes, sir.
Doing good.
Doing pretty well. It's Friday, so that means tomorrow's Saturday. In case you couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, what did you all think of the new and last trailer of Deadpool and Wolverine? Spoiler alert for those of you who are not on planet Earth, and have tried to avoid as many of the sneak peeks in the trailers as possible. I think at this point you've probably seen everything. The last trailer had a surprise and one of probably multiple cameos. So what'd you think? How is it a final conclusion and the buildup is real? We've been talking about it week over week. Chat your thoughts on the character unveiling in the last final trailer.
I mean, which one are we talking about? Which character? We're just gonna say it, right? We're spoiling everything.
Well, I mean, if you watch the trailer, I mean, you needed to go off social media for the entire week if you didn't want spoilers.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Then we'll talk about it. Super excited to see X-23.
Yep.
Freaking amazing. And the walking explosion. Honestly, the trailer was kind of like, it was a different tone than the other trailers, and I liked it. It was like a serious I mean, yeah, it was fantastic. It made me want to see the movie that much more, which is why I'm probably going to see it on Thursday, and then also Friday. But then also
I got my
Saturday.
tickets on Thursday because I don't want to. I to prevent spoilers. It just needed because I'm not trying to go on my phone or get texts. I got to see it, so that's where I'll be on Thursday.
Yeah, they were very smart because all the stuff leading up to this was comedy. Oh, this is going to be funny. Now is when there's some heart to it as well. And it's like, oh, this is actually going to be good because Hugh Jackman is a good actor. And
yes,
he can play the shit out of Wolverine with all this, pathos and, everything went to hell. It's going to be good. I think they're really showing you it's like, okay, we're not just this one level. It's going to be better possibly than the last two.
Yeah, I think they definitely had to set aside. First of all, we know that because months ago we heard X-23 was in it. So now we're starting to know that a lot of these backward rumors that everybody's talking about, that's not going to happen. That guy's not going to be in this. I got a feeling that a lot of people are going to be shocked because this was like X-23 was one of the first that I heard was going to be in it. And then there's obviously a couple of more. So that's an actual confirmation of all the things we've been told. The second thing was just, again, right, like Hugh Jackman's going to pull this off. And I think that because of Hugh Jackman's intensity, it's only going to help Ryan Reynolds, basically bring it this as well. So I'm looking forward to the movie. I think that Marvel's definitely looking forward to the movie. Disney as a whole, they've had one hell of a great summer, and they haven't had that in a while. And I think that this is shaping everything else that's coming after it. Because I've heard there's a lot of abandoned plans that they started doing. Things they started scrapped up. They spent $300 million for Captain America 4 because the stuff wasn't working out, and they had a cameo on that turned out to be an actual character from the X-Force days. So kudos to them that they're trying something different. They're not just doing the same molds that they were doing before.
Yeah, and
this looks entertainable.
I heard that they're also bringing in James Gunn. He was just gonna negate everything from the Marvel MCU and start over.
Well, I appreciate that they are literally in the ruins of 20th Century Fox when they're having a bunch of this stuff happen. So it's gonna be cool, and they can do anything they want to fix everything that's wrong.
Can we talk about really quick how my favorite my favorite thing to see in the background of just like Easter eggs was only feet.
Yeah. But yeah. Well, let's talk about before we jump into X-Men, because this is X-Men related. Let's talk about the semi-confirmed, confirmed, and then like the strongest of rumors heading into Thursday. So confirmed is obviously X-23.
Absolutely.
Lady Deadpool, who's playing everyone is thinking it's Ryan Reynolds' wife, which if it isn't, people will be disappointed.
They also think it's Taylor Swift.
Yes.
Well, I hope not. Please don't make it.
No, but that's the thing is everyone thinks she's going to be Dazzler.
That's what everybody said, yeah.
But it's probably she's playing Lady Deadpool.
I mean, it'll just make so much money. It'll make so much money if it is her on Thursday. It's gonna be Titanic.
Did you want an extra $20 million?
I know.
Hire Taylor Swift.
We do get a sneak peek of Cowboy Deadpool, and the rumor is it is Matthew McConaughey as Cowboy Deadpool, which would be like amazing to see.
So it's going to be all right.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen Juggernaut in the back. We don't know who is playing Jug, if it's what's his name, Vinny, the original, or if it's going to be some variant. And then obviously Sabretooth has been in there before. And then a lot of other rumors, but those are the things confirmed. One thing that just recently hit today for the toy collectors is the leak of the new Deadpool, Wolverine, and the Wolverine figure that is coming out. But in the back, you can't make it out. But in the back of the box, you have like a rainbow and you've got some other things. There is a green thing in the back, and you can't really make it out. And everyone's assumption it is Hulk in the back of the background. And the rumor was several weeks ago when Ryan Reynolds' voice as Deadpool was like, "This is the fight that everyone has been waiting for." Everyone thought that was dubbed over from another scene in the film because it wouldn't make any sense for Sabretooth and Wolverine. That's not what everyone's waiting for. Everybody's waiting for Hulk and Wolvie. So, I mean, they are teasing it so right, and they've not given a ton away, but those are the latest.
They put a lot of emphasis on the car scene where he's like, pew, 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 and he says stop and he goes, pew. So I think there's going to be a Spider-Man in there, and I think
3.
Yeah,
you never know.
Yeah, I think there'll be some version of Spider-Man that shows up. Dude, if it's Hulk and Wolverine, oh man, people are just gonna walk out, buy a ticket again, and go watch it again at the same time. I mean, it's
gonna make so much money
when you do stuff like this. You tease things, but then also you misdirect things, because when you go into the theater, you want people to be surprised. They know there's going to be this, and this, but you do want to have something like, "Oh, I never thought that was going to happen." And this of anything of except maybe Endgame has the ability to do that.
Well, I have a question I've been waiting to ask you three specifically, just based off of, and maybe a little bit more Dr. Brentley and Storm than Rad, but Rad as well. Being involved in the industry, right? Like working on whether it's scripts or cutting the trailers or working on set, whatever it is. How do you think they've kept everybody so quiet and not leaked anything more than what was needed to be done for this movie?
Non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah, but non-disclosure agreements have failed in the past. We've
but
the
not
whole point
Disney's
is,
too many times.
Yeah, not with Disney, not with Marvel. They're gonna murder you. It's like, no, we have an assassin. Literally, if you say something, we're gonna murder you. So.
Yeah, there's like if you've got the power brokers behind you, like I always wondered how they kept Matt Damon's character a secret in Interstellar. Like, how did that, like, at no point was that leaked? And that's because Nolan and the bigwigs are like, you would get sued. You'd be paying the rest of your life if you leaked
when you
it.
have these big movies at a trailer house, everyone that sees that, comes into contact with that picture and has access to it is signed to a very strict NDA. And so they know, and every version of it is watermarked, so they can trace it back to who would have leaked it or whatever. So they can find you if they want. But the whole point is very few people have access to it until it's released.
Yep.
And Crooks Miles, Richard agrees with us, which is very well true. Yeah, those Disney is probably one of the few companies that if they want something to get out, they'll let it out. But it's very rare that you're going to have somebody in some effect house or something throwing it out and doing something. They are very hard on that, and I'm pretty sure that we've dealt with a couple of NDAs, and I think Shaquille O'Neal, when we worked for him for a while, we had the NDA in the beginning, and I remember our agent was like, "Don't say crap anything," because he was like, "You guys, it will go through the roof." And that actually, the fear of that happening was something that we were very serious about, and there's a lot of last minute changes and everything before we showed up at a Comic-Con panel, but we kept that pretty well quiet, other than he was going to be at the panel and that there was going to be a book premiere there, but that was it. So, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
But also, you will be blacklisted in the industry.
Damn right.
If it comes out that you leaked some stuff, you won't be able to get a job again. So most people stick to it.
And you think about what Disney's running, like almost 64% of the industry now with their releases. You got to be cool.
Yep.
Cricket actually had something said. It's like I had a buddy who did sound on Disney films. He was under. Yep. Oh yeah, he was under a tight one too.
See the whole movie,
yeah,
right? To make the sound effects, you have to see the finished thing, because if the explosions go off, you have to have explosion sounds. So
they have done a masterful job in protecting the secrets. So we're all excited for it. I think the last thing before we jump into our X-Men topic is that there's always been speculation about who is going to anchor the main villain in the new MCU. Obviously, with Jonathan Majors and Kang departing, you've got Secret Wars upcoming, you've got Avengers, and no one knows. And the rumor was, will the villain be unveiled here in some capacity in this movie? We know there is one, but will there be at the end a teaser to something else? And a leaker on X, who's been right a lot of the times, has stated that it could be Iron Man turning into Doctor Doom and Downey Jr. becoming the villain of the MCU, which I thought was a little crazy, but then again,
that would be cool.
Not too crazy. Because if there's a way to bring in like his interest, I'm sure he's like, I don't want to do Iron Man again. But if they said, oh no, but you're at the helm of the new villain of the MCU, I was like, that is an easy cameo to pull off at the end of the movie and then segue into the new films. What do you think about that? You think that's
Yeah, I read that and have kind of like pondered that rumor. And here's the thing. Even if that's not it, the new villain at this point has to be Doom, because Doom will just make fist loads of money for the MCU. Doom plays such a big part in just how I don't know. I think if that's the case where he becomes Doom after being Iron Man, like people are going to be drooling for the next movie to come out.
A lot of Halloween costumes are being purchased. No one was buying Kang outfits. Let's be honest.
No.
There's two things. One, there was a Tony Stark from the future that was actually, I think, the great grandson of actual Tony Stark. That was basically, he was sent to the past to destroy Tony Stark. So they could actually do something like that and give Robert Downey Jr. a whole nother lease on life. So they could do it. Second thing is, I don't understand why they removed Jonathan Majors. If you wanted the greatest villain in the MCU, you had him. You didn't have to replace his dude.
Hey, maybe that's the shock. We all think Kang Dynasty's over, and he's like, I'm back.
What people
the Kang Dynasty, bitches.
It's already, they already hate him. So you already got the perfect villain. You don't need
Mr. Storm. They have a great opportunity to do something even more epic and controversial. That the Kang variant is P. Diddy, and that would just set the whole theater on fire.
They have to shoot that internationally. I can't see him come back in the country. Yeah. Wow. Oh yeah, that would definitely do it. That would definitely do it.
Dr. Brantley, your last thoughts on Doom, Iron Man before we jump into what everyone is tuned in for, which is X-Men.
You are correct that you would sell a ton of toys and costumes if you make Doom the villain. Because I can see, first of all, I would like some of those retro Halloween costumes where it's just like the little plastic face that you put on and a little elastic band around it, but you just have the little slits for the eyes and the little slit for the mouth, and it's Dr. Doom, the original look for him. Could be cool, but if they want a villain, you're right. Kang is not going to sell a bunch of costumes and toys. Doom will.
Yeah.
And what's Disney in this for? To make money.
Money!
We shall see. Before we go any further, hey, thanks for tuning in. Subscribe, like the channel, comment. Thanks, chat, for tuning in live on the Shadow Knows Network every Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific time. And without further ado, it's time to talk about the epic bunch, the mutant heads themselves. This is the X-Men. Man, I love the X-Men, and I'm excited that they have now resurfaced with the X-Men 97 cartoon. It did extremely well, and now obviously Wolverine. So before we get into the X-Men best artist, the best mutant, and yes, I agree, Doom is the greatest villain, and now is the time to bring him in. But for X-Men, do you think the MCU, like the future of the X-Men, what do you all think?
Well, first of all, I don't think there's a way in hell that they can do this without Hugh Jackman now. When he said he wasn't going to do it anymore and he wasn't going to move over to the Marvel thing, and like, okay, well, it's a little bit of a hunt, but I'm sure they could find someone. I gotta think that now, they're just going to bring him back and he's going to carry it over because he is probably the best candidate for it. The MCU has, with Fantastic Four, with the X-Men, they have another crop of characters that are iconic, and they have an opportunity to craft some stories and do a continuation. And let's say, the last several phases hasn't worked. Those are probably the characters that people want to see, not the internals, not some of these other low tier. They didn't want to see Captain Marvel and the rest. Fantastic Four, they definitely want to see a la Doom and Galactus. And then you most definitely want to see the X-Men. And again, I think one of the main things was I've always wanted to see the X-Men versus the Avengers. Could we ever see that? There's an opportunity for it now. So I think that they've learned some lessons in the past 4 years, and it seems like they're making a pivot. But if they don't have any, and the next thing, don't have Simon Kingsbury come back and write any of these. I've never seen a man bring a franchise up, destroy it, then bring it up, and then destroy it again. I've never seen that happen across the point. Get some new blood in there, get some new things. If you can do those, keep Jackman and get rid of Kingsbury, you're probably got a lesson for success here.
Yeah, I think I'm excited to see what happens with it. I will say that I'm just excited to see them do a Fantastic Four movie the right way, because it's just a underrated, amazing comic, and I think that if they get it right, it could be massive. Just like, there's a lot of, like, all the Spider-Man movies were good, but then when it was like finally like a Sony Marvel collaboration, then we started to get a lot of people being like, that is Spider-Man, like that's how it would be. So I think with Hugh Jackman, almost impossible not to bring him back. But depending on how they do Deadpool, they could bring him back and then he could disappear, and they could try to find it. I know that there was a leak going around that Keanu Reeves was in a Wolverine costume.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw that. Did you guys see that?
No,
I haven't seen it. No.
Yeah, he had
Logan Wick. Okay, all right.
Yeah, it was like he had the cowl on and everything. Is like so.
I'm sure it wasn't photoshopped.
No, it was Affinity photoed.
And I think you're right, Mr. Storm. Hugh Jackman, at this point, because you can still go 10, 15 more years with him.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to get older and grizzled, but that's good for Wolverine.
Yes.
That's not a problem. And especially, you can do stuff going back. You can, because first of all, they've got all the scans of him as young. So you can do stuff, make him look younger. You can do stuff today. And it is a shame for other actors that they're not going to get a chance to play Wolverine. Maybe they change it in this. Maybe all of a sudden Daniel Radcliffe or someone else is going to show up at the end and take his place. But I really think Hugh Jackman should stick with this character. It's one of those defining things that, like, even more so than Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones, you can stick with, because he's done way more of them and for longer at this point.
Well, two things.
Just stick with the character and make it your own
He's been Wolverine for 25 years.
Yeah, if I'm his agent, I'm like, that's great paycheck, bro.
Yeah,
and you already got
time.
this down. You could just phone Wolverine in if you want to.
It's but it's so unusual for a superhero, and we talked about Christopher Reeves a lot, the Superman episode. So for those of you who haven't seen last week's episode, we talked a lot about Superman. But it's unusual for an actor to get their big start as a comic book character and then continue on to be so popular and still carry that with them. Usually it's established because they don't want to take a chance. But I don't think they knew the power of X-Men at that point in time. Obviously, it was still, but like it's unheard of, right? It's usually one and done, or it's like we need a Tom Cruise to play Wolverine.
Well, and it was their second choice.
Yes.
They had Dougray Scott ready to go, and it was because Mission Impossible 2 was taking too long to film. Yeah. And so Tom Cruise owes that man a shit ton of money because he missed out on 25 years of paychecks.
So like that and CBS and Tom Selleck. It's like somebody in this town's getting screwed out of something. Everything. I think that the original pre-team Wolverine needs to build a new audience. We'll see, bro.
Yeah, I think they need to recast a lot of the X-Men, though. That's
I think they will. Oh, yeah. I think they will.
One of them.
And I think it starts with Cyclops because he's so valuable to the X-Men franchise. And I think there's an opportunity there. So let's jump into it in terms of the best mutants of all time and have some open discussion on, because I think, again, you talk to folks, it's usually everyone's got the same 5 or 6, but let's throw it out there in the universe and see if there's any difference in opinion, because usually Wolverine is number 1, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on other mutants in the X-Men universe.
In X-Men The Last Stand, there was a guy that had thorns come out of his body. I think that's the one.
He was so impactful in your life that you remembered his name.
That was about it.
Go ahead, Mr. Maddox. What are you thinking?
No, I want to.
Okay.
Hang out. I want to hang out for a little bit. Let's.
I think the most important mutant that was created is by somebody we know very personally. I think Cable. I think if you're thinking about Wolverine, I think Cable and obviously Deadpool are like maybe the 3 most influential X-Men. I'm going to throw probably Storm in that. Here's somebody that transcended between teams of the Avengers, was married to the Black Panther, was X-Men. That's a lot of jumping back and forth. So I would say very impactful. And then obviously Professor X and Magneto.
Yeah, well, as we talk about a lot, the Avengers, you basically Frozone. Basically, you have
where's my super suit?
Wolverine is the equivalent in like some ways to like Iron Man, right?
Yes.
The rogue, do what you
Batman.
But I'm saying Batman in the Avengers world, because what I'm trying to do is the analogy of Wolverine to Iron Man is like Cyclops and Captain America, which is like Cyclops plays the straight man, and it's like both of them like shoulder to shoulder really compile the X-Men. Those two together are just like so well, and that's why I think they should recast Cyclops, because I wasn't happy with whatever his name. He was okay. He was okay. But I think Cyclops is really important, and I get Wolverine is there too, and I think Chris Claremont did an amazing job with Cyclops because you saw different versions of Cyclops, and so again, I know it's tough. I know Wolverine's super impactful, but I don't think if you're talking about the whole X-Men universe, I don't think Wolverine goes as well unless you have Cyclops in the story, in the thick of things, in the animations. So that's what I would say. The future of MCU, that has to be so pivotal to the continued success of the franchise.
I don't know about that, just because there's a reason that Wolverine has been in every single X-Men movie that's been out. there hasn't.
Well,
been
he is
one
the most
except
popular character.
maybe New Mutants. He wasn't in that, but besides that, and I don't think that really counts. But
yeah, who said
yeah,
Iceman? You know, I don't think they've ever
Iceman
used
and
him as
Pyro,
well.
I don't
think they ever
like
used
that.
them well enough. I would like to see them, if they're going to do a new series, actually shine and use his powers more. But I think he was underwhelmed in the 20th Century Fox versions of him. But yeah, he would be cool.
And don't forget about Beast, man. That's like
exactly.
Come on, it's like the Bruce Banner of the X-Men universe, man. Come on.
Yeah. Beast is good.
There's a lot of great characters, and I think they have the opportunity to expand the storylines. Look, I think the only character that they did right at 20th Century Fox was Magneto. And it was the minute that Michael Fassbender took over, you saw a complexity to this character that you hadn't seen before. So if you can extend that over into this, and obviously, you know, we've got to see pretty good kind of Professor X's, you know, so they have, look, it's the most diverse Marvel team when it comes to characters, powers, regions, places. They could be the X-Men, and all of the other X shoot-offs can be anywhere, you know, and that's what makes it so appealing. And it's like, you know, you would think if they were going to start the universe, obviously 20th Century Fox had the X-Men, but I'm sure they would much rather would have had that build up to one of those Avenger movies, Avengers versus X-Men. And they would have wanted to do that long ago, comparably to this point, you know?
Well, they need to wait on that, because they do need to set up the X-Men and have a couple of movies with them. And then set up their new Avengers team. And then, so it's probably like phase 7 or something. Yeah. Where you know, the end of that, you do Avengers versus X-Men, and that could be as big as Endgame.
And I think so. And I think, yeah, you're right. You can't rush into it like they did Justice League or something. You've got to build a slow burn like they did for the first original Avengers movie. Yep. They had let some time go by, and then they brought out, and it was a slow burn. Well, we all know it's coming at one point. You just, what version of the Avengers, because they have to reintroduce different characters or newer characters, or however they're going to fix whatever they're going to do. But, and then you've got to introduce all the X-Men and then have them actually build up, and then you can run that story. So, you know, it's absolutely true. Crooked Smile says, I will take the original team done correctly over almost anyone. And yeah, the original team in the, you know, early 60s is a great team. And I think First Class was a really good movie that shined with a lot of those original characters.
Yeah. As long as there's a multiverse in the new X-Men MCU, because please, it could just be a minute scene. Jean-Claude Van Damme as Gambit. That's all I want.
I mean, you will never see Jean-Claude Van Damme. Come on. You will never see that happen.
Wasn't he kind of Gambit in that movie where he punched the snake? He had the brown trench coat. He had wait, wasn't he? He was from New Orleans. He had the that's Gambit, man. Watch that. What's the movie called? Hard Target, right?
Hard Target. Yeah.
Watch Hard Target. That is there's a Gambit there. I'm not saying the whole damn movie, but let's see it before it's too late, man.
You do know acting is one of the prerequisites to be an X-Men
it's not,
right? Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Not in the multiverse.
Now, if Roger Corman was still around, I can see that happening.
The way things you do today, you really should get a Louisiana native, preferably from New Orleans, and has that actual accent, not somebody trying to put something on, especially not somebody from Brussels trying to
just give me an alternate version accent. Though. Dr. Brantley, I'm just asking for a minute version. That's all I want. I mean, do you want Henry Cavill's Wolverine?
I would like to see that.
We just kind of want to see him, but you wouldn't want Henry Cavill. Would you want to see him carried on? Like,
let me tell you something. Henry Cavill is one of the most dedicated actors in Hollywood. He would do it right. He wouldn't just take that role and just say, "Hey, I'm just going to play it like this."
It would be more
do some
serious.
Deep studying. Yeah, he would bring it in. So yeah, I would love to see Henry Cavill, brother.
Well, I'm gonna change it up on everyone here, because we're all talking about what I feel like everyone is aware of, right? Like Professor X and Storm and Cyclops and Beast, and there's some known unknown characters. So one of my favorite writers for X-Men has always been Chris Claremont. And one of my absolute favorite X-Men that is so hard to figure out has always been Legion. And for everyone that doesn't know, Legion is the son of Professor Xavier. And I forget who his the mother was. Gabriel Haller, I think, was his mom. But he's like probably one of the most powerful X-Men's ever that no one talks about, that I feel like they could take and do an amazing story. There was the FX series that was out with that came out with Legion, and that's a really good series. I think it was underrated. I think it was a little too advanced for its time. So that's one of them. And then, you know, you talked about Cable, and I would absolutely agree with you on Cable probably being one of my all-time favorite X-Men. However, I do like Nathaniel Gray, or Nate Gray, who is the Cable from he was Cable from Earth 295. So he's basically Jean Grey and Scott Summers, like that's their son, but he's just a different version of him, and he's got a little bit more power. He's unreal. If you've never read it, you can check it out. He's an awesome character created by he was created by Jeff Loeb, was the writer that came up with that. And then another one that I like because it's quirky, and X-Men have always been kind of like quirky. I really liked all the background scenes of people doing stuff in the background in Professor Xavier's school. There's one that doesn't really get a lot of talk, but in the series, Professor Xavier really leans in on this character, and this character is Kid Omega. And Kid Omega is thought to be probably the most powerful telepath X-Men ever to exist, even over Jean Grey. So you don't really get into Kid Omega. It's inspired by like punk rock, and it's Quentin Query, I think is his name actually, but he goes by Kid Omega. But that's a cool character to look into. Really pinnacle for X-Men. So those are some of the ones I want to bring up. I do love Bishop too, though, by the way.
I do, and I think I saw Bishop in the early part of Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
In the first scene.
Is Bishop X-Men though?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's an X-Men from the future. Same thing like Cable. He came back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then Quirkus Mouse is X-Man too, which I forgot about that character. I've seen him.
X-Man.
That's actually a pretty decent character itself. He's right. There are a lot of great X-Men characters, and again, Chris Claremont's probably responsible for let's say 80% of them.
Yeah. Oh, the good ones anyway.
I think Legion was Professor X's son.
Yes.
Yeah, he was.
Mm-hmm. And Quicksilver, I think, was Magneto's son.
Magneto's, right? Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But Legion's a badass character. Heck yeah.
Yeah. I love Legion.
And then all the X-Force characters too. Like there's some really cool like Havoc and what's the other? Is it
for which one? X Factor.
Yeah, X Factor. What's the strong guy? I mean, there's so many
strong guy. Multiple man.
Mm-hmm. Multiple man.
I think
Wolfbane.
Yeah. There's so many. Again, there's so many great X teams and X characters, and just when you think that there's not enough, you can come up with 10 more that equally fit in as well.
And I do have to say some classic ones I do like. Colossus. About Magneto is about the only one that can mess with him. He's metal. What are you gonna do? And the other one, Kitty Pryde, is the one that can like walk through walls and shit, right? Because that would be a very good thing to have. It's like you can't hold me no matter what I do, right? I can walk through. Boom, bye.
I like Rogue too. I mean, Rogue
Rogue
looked great.
Power.
yeah. And then Mystique. I mean, how could we forget about?
Oh, shit. Now, see, that's more of a party trick because she doesn't really have any powers. It's just I can mimic people.
That's a hell of a power, though.
Well, right, but again, you have to be able to con people that you are that person and get in, but you don't have like super strength or anything like that.
You also can't if you want to get a little crazy. And this is how bad the 2000s were. When they did Young X-Men, for all you tattoo lovers out there, there was a character Ink who was a normal human, but because he got tattooed by a mutant, he got mutant powers. You remember that guy?
That one.
You don't remember that? Yeah, it's all right. It's creative, I guess. It's just like mutant Ink.
There was a certain time in 2000s they were trying just about any damn thing. I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Like we knew, like Wolverine was going to be at the top of the food chain, but I think a couple of them. Did anybody say Professor X?
I did.
Yeah, but the problem with people like Professor X or Jean Grey, they're so powerful that someone is always going to be messing with you and trying to destroy you or something. It's almost too much to deal with. That's why like a Wolverine is good, because he can, take whatever you give, put at him, but people aren't trying to, I don't know, go after his entire history. And
I mean, with Legion is kind of in the same realm as the Muir Island X-Men, though. So, like the Muir Island, you had Banshee, Forge, Polaris, Adam Sefton, Legion, Sunder. Was it Sunder? No, it was Sunder. And so, I mean, you had these off branch X-Men. But they're still pretty big. I mean, Forge is a big part in X-Men, right? And Banshee is. So,
yeah. Was there ever a worse, like the Explode, where you could do it once? I don't know. Is that Cannonball? I don't know.
It might be Cannonball. Maybe that is.
I don't remember. He could only the powers he only could explode.
If you only do it once. It's the first time you accidentally find out that you can do it, and then you're dead. It's like, whoops. Well,
I was going to say, was there ever a more powerful character that was ruined than Dark Phoenix?
I think they used that way too much. Not just the movie, in the comics as well, man. I think they used that character way too many times.
Yeah, Dark Phoenix. Like. Yeah, such a overpowered character, and I just felt like the movie was absolutely disastrous. I mean, right up there with Super Skrull as far as like what in the hell are you all doing? But done so many times, right? The Phoenix, cool character, but
Cannonball was the dude that could fly at like jet speeds. He was created by Chris Claremont, so he wasn't.
He was not created by Chris Claremont.
No, Chris Claremont. If you're talking X-Men, you probably have to stamp either Grant Morrison or Chris Claremont's name on most of them.
Yeah.
Like a majority of the ones that anyone talks about is going to be Chris Claremont.
Are you sure on that one? Are you sure it wasn't Louis Simonson? Because wasn't that an X-Force member, New Mutant character? That might not have been.
He appeared in New Mutants, but it was done by. So it was Chris Claremont created him, and then Bob McLeod was the artist for the first appearance of him. But the reason why you think it's the other one is because he showed up in the New Mutants. But but Chris Claremont took over and started writing New Mutants at some point. I don't remember where it was at, but I think he did the off issues. For that, that's where they came from.
A personal favorite that's not in this nowhere close to Wolverine is Psylocke. I think that she is a super cool character.
Psylocke is awesome if done right.
Yeah. So I mean, tons of it's just so crazy, the evolution of X-Men and how many characters there have been. So there are years and years and years in the making of making good films, we hope, with the MCU in charge. Before we get into like best X-Men artists, and obviously we were talking a lot about the writers and the creators, any last words on X-Men, Dr. Brantley, Mr. Storm, Chet?
No, I think we covered it, brother.
Okay.
I just want a Marvel Legends version of one of their vehicles. That's all
we will get it one day, I'm sure.
So obviously we know the G.I. Joe. It's going to be, we all know what it's going to be, the HasLab on the 25th. And all the Marvel collectors, once they saw that, was like, see, they can make a Blackbird. Right? But I don't know if Hasbro would like replicate, like, let's do another plane. But it's clear you can make a 6-inch plane.
I think they would, because they'd be like, well, let's get all the other money we didn't get from the G.I. Joe one.
They would do like one right after the other, like do a plane this HasLab.
Hasbro has said that air vehicles were significantly cheaper for them to produce than ground vehicles. So if there's a chance that a Quinjet or a Blackbird could show up, because they say that's obviously cheaper to do. So yeah, I think it would.
Yeah. It's those pesky rolling wheels. They have to, go like this.
Oh. Yeah. So good. Oh God. Yeah,
I've never heard of
Explodey Boy.
Okay, if they make a Explodey Boy Marvel Legend, I'm buying it right now. But I've never seen it.
And it needs to be like mid-explosion, like
Crooked. I have a question for you. How much would it cost me to have you create an Explodey Boy?
He needs to make one for the crew.
You definitely orders replacing with you live on stream for Explodey Boy.
Yeah. Just let me know where to send the money, the self-addressed stamped envelope, plus shipping and handling, and I will send it over.
He's definitely got to film that so we can do a documentary, Explodey Boy.
I do. I am looking for. I do need to get a custom of Silver Surfer.
We'll talk to Richard after the show.
Yeah.
Okay, well, best artists, X-Men artists in the comic book world. I mean, should we just get number one out of the way?
Oh,
I mean, it depends on who you think number one is.
No, we all know who number one is.
Okay, if you don't think it's him,
you're dead. Then I'm dropping off the cast tonight, bro.
There's a reason
tonight
that all of the promotional artwork is still used by this gentleman.
I remember there was a time that said I would never read X-Men. I wasn't big into the 80s and X-Men. I said, oh, the X-Men suck. And then they said my favorite artist of all time was leaving, Punisher War Journal, and he was doing X-Men. And there's one image alone that I said, he is the greatest artist of all time. There's Wolverine, Captain America, and the Black Widow on the cover. And I was like, oh, snap. This is going to be good. It is Jim Lee. Jim Lee is number one.
By far. And just so the artists run Uncanny X-Men Volume 1.
Oh, yeah.
248, 256, 258. I mean, such a long stretch. X-Men Volume 2. And Uncanny. So his work on Uncanny X-Men in the 90s, I mean, some of the best damn covers and also stories too, which helped the art significantly. But geez, man, like so iconic. And I mean, there's been some other artists we'll talk about, but Jim Lee's number one. Chat, are you going to say something controversial here, my friend? Dr. Brantley, can you before he opens his mouth, can you tell him why Jim Lee was the best in X-Men? Because he's having a hard time connecting the dots here.
Well, look, the thing about it was at the time, I think that was like 1990 or something, when the X-Men book came out. I was into comics for 4 or 5 years at that point. And when I saw, it's like, oh, X-Men, this has been going on since the 60s. You're in the 300s. I don't need to start now, right? I didn't want, there's 20 other books that are X books. I don't even want to bother with that. So, I collected my stuff, but then I start oh, I love this artist. Oh, this guy. And then Jim Lee, one of my favorites from Punisher War Journal, and he's going to do an X-Men book starting #1 and a way for people to get into this very convoluted continuity. And it was beautiful. And there was a bunch of different versions of it, whatever, and I got a couple of them, but it was a great start, and I don't think that any of them have looked as good. You even over McFarlane and the original artists, nobody made them look, especially Magneto, as good as Jim Lee.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I think everyone rides the Jim Lee train all the time. I think Jim Lee is great, but I think I think everyone rides that train a little hard sometimes.
Well,
John Byrne, yeah. Sorry.
No, I think John Burns is up there. I don't think I think Jim Lee surpassed him, but I think John Burns is one of the better.
Jim Lee got to use John Burns as inspiration.
Everybody got to use John Burns as inspiration.
I know, that's why John Burns probably the top X-Men artist ever.
But here's why Jim Lee's greater, because John Burns could sustain it as long as Jim Lee has. Jim Lee has gotten like wine. You haven't seen X-Men. John Burns fell off a cliff. And Jim Lee has been the only person since his 20s to propel himself into his mid-50s and keep going. By the 50s, John Burns was halfway drawing and believed that he was God's gift to comic book artists and started going a different route, man. So that's where I can say the sustainability is that if John Burns came back right now to draw the X-Men, people would be happy. If Jim Lee did it, people lose their fucking minds. There's the difference between the two. So that's why I said I think John Burns is up there. His work in the 70s, along with John Romita Jr., John Romita Sr., that did some of those works, is wonderful. I would say third on that list is probably Joe Magnera, because Joe brought manga to the X-Men, and everyone started copying that style after he did it. So
where do you put Andy Kubrick on there then?
I put Andy Kubrick probably he's in the top 10.
Well, I think Adam is better than Andy.
Neil Adams?
No,
Adam Kubrick
and
Kubrick. Andy. They both worked on it, but I think Adam was better on X-Men than Andy was.
Well, he does. We are getting slapped in our face a little bit on that one. we did kind of forget about Jack Kirby. Yeah, so yeah.
Well, no, you don't forget about him. He's the foundation. He built everything.
But no, I absolutely agree. I think Carlos Pacheco in the early 2000s had a run, and you were like, wow, this guy, there's been some talent. I loved the Executioner Song with Andy Kubrick drawing some of that stuff. So they've got some great artists. But I think as far as I think Burns is in there as iconic. I think Jim Lee's in there as iconic, and I think Joe Mad is in there as iconic.
So who do you think demands more money for a piece, Alex Ross or Jim Lee?
Well, Alex Ross.
Well, at this moment, you just saw Jim Lee release his numbers. Jim Lee's has an astronomical amount for his stuff, bro.
Well, it's like different.
You want to sketch? It's $20,000. What's
I was like, he's asking for some up there stuff at this moment. So I don't know, man.
Let's not forget, because it's overshadowed by Jim Lee taking over in the 90s, but Silvestri's work in the late 80s was good too. He had a long run before Jim Lee then really catapulted X-Men, but Mark Silvestri's stuff was really good too.
I remember the most blasphemous cover I'd ever seen to X-Men or any other book is all. And I was in the comic book store when Mark Silvestri was drawing, and it made me look at it. It was the Scavengers, and they had Wolverine on the cover, crucified on the X. And I immediately walked by that, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I had to sneak that book into my house.
Mom would have slapped you, dude.
This was blasphemous, but
your mom would have slapped you with that book.
I remember that, and I think he had Dan Green as his inker, and I think really the best inker in the business is Scott Williams, because he always did a great job of it. But Dan Green also made Silvestri's work look gritty. And we also sleep on how good Larry Stroman was and how absolutely fantastic Will Spertatio was.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that 80s X-Men team and early 90s, and also Joe Quesada on X Factor and a little bit on that. They had some heavy hitters in the X-Men office.
Oh, I have to agree with you. Jim Lee's Batman. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how you know how powerful Jim Lee's the best X-Men artist. 3 or 4 have said it, but that wasn't his best work, which is even crazier.
I get it.
Think about it. Yeah, there is no character better in Jim Lee's portfolio than the work on Batman.
John Burns never got to cross his own characters with the X-Men. Jim Lee did with Wildcat. Going to tell you his power in the business, bro.
I think for me, like iconic wise, like John's artwork is just like iconic. Like, yeah, but maybe he didn't like pump the gun and like go as far as Jim Lee, but I think for the time for the era in which he was creating and drawing X-Men, there wasn't the same push and the same type of media as there was for like Jim Lee when he was up and coming. Now Jim Lee, I'm not saying he's not good, and if John was on this list, Jim Lee would be my top. But I'm going based off of like just pure icon. It's like if you were to ask me who drew the best Mysterio ever, it'd be John Romita Sr. Best version of Mysterio ever drawn. It's been used for multiple things. But I get it. John Byrne, like burning both sides of the candle, burned out. Right, it's in his name.
Well, if you put him in the context, if you say, like, who's the iconic version of Superman? I think John Burns is more iconically known for drawing Man of Steel and Superman than his run on the X. His run on the X-Men is, while we know he's done it, it's not as like impactful as his Man of Steel was. So that's what I'm saying. Where it's like I love John Burns' work, and if we were put in the context of his DC work, yes, John Burns is murdering it, but he was eclipsed by Jim, by Joe, by so many other great artists that really propelled it. Because when you go and you look at any X-Men image that you see any place, damn straight 90% of that's probably a Jim Lee drawing somewhere. From some of those brand new boxes to covers to, like, you can't eclipse Jim Lee's just impact on that. So that's why I'm saying that he does. I rarely see any of the 70s version. I can see like John Romita Sr. for a lot of the Spider-Man stuff now, because that's also locked in with Steve Ditko and even John Romita Jr. and Todd McFarlane. But John Burns isn't mentioned in the same level with X-Men. While I think his work is good, I just think Man of Steel is where I identify him at the top of his game.
And now John Byrne did have some iconic stories, and that was thanks to Chris Claremont. Right. Yeah. So that's a lot of what he is given credit for is he got these great stories to illustrate. And, it's not that it didn't matter who was there, but he did bring something awesome to it. But I think he has a little bit more of that to lean on the good writing than Jim Lee, where the writing was not as good, but his artwork took it over to the next level.
Yep.
Well, my favorite X-Men artist is Scotty Young. So
I was just gonna say,
but I mean that's a whole different.
Could you imagine if Scotty Young decided he was going to do sequentials, like Chet would buy every book,
it'll be there.
10 copies of each.
That's all my.
Scotty's still got some time. He's still got some time.
Scotty's raking the dough now since he's crossed over to DC. The DC. So.
I would love to see Sean Gordon Murphy draw X-Men. Like there's a lot of great artists out there that haven't been on this series. I'd love to see some different renditions and versions of them. So a lot of great guys that haven't touched that side of the cross company. So you can see some stuff like that.
Would be an interesting sort of.
I do remember Mignola did an issue in the early days of X-Force, and it was in between when Rob Liefeld was at his prime and he was getting ready to leave, and they put Mignola. And I remember I was in the comics, I was like, who drew this crap?
What the hell is this?
I was like, this is not my Rob Liefeld X-Force book. I think it was like X-Force number 11 or 12, and I was like pissed and everything. And then years later, I saw him do Hellboy, and I was like, oh, I gotta take that back. And I met him in Manhattan Beach. He was at a comic book store in Manhattan Beach. He happened to be popped in, and I knew he was and everything. I remember telling him, I remember I couldn't stand when you drew that issue of X-Force, and he laughed. He was like, I had to pay the bills, kid. I had to pay the bills. Actually, Art Adams. Forgot about Mr. Art Adams. Yeah.
Well, lots of buzz around X-Men, Deadpool, Wolverine. Hey, can we see Wolverine and Punisher fight? I mean, can we do it?
Whoa, I mean, that would be great too, man. Got two great actors for that one.
Honestly, if Wolverine fights Punisher, Punisher is just going to get cut up. And
not if Garth Ennis writes the fight. If he does the fight sequences, it might be different. So we're super excited for it. Look, we're running out of time here. So I mean, it was such a meaty topic here. Please like, subscribe. We thank you all for tuning in. I think one last final thought before we jump into a couple things here, gentlemen. I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the Terminator, the Netflix animated trailer. It looks stellar to me. It looked really good. What are your thoughts?
Look, there was a point where I didn't think they could actually do Terminator good anymore, and they found the recipe. Don't have an actual director direct live action. Just do it as animation, and it could work. It had all the grit, and I was like, wow, I'm really looking forward to the series. I love that kind of mecha kind of, manga-ish kind of not. I think it's going to be pretty good, and there's a aspect where you don't need Arnold Schwarzenegger to come back. You don't need to de-age him or anything, so that you just got animation there. So great trailer. Bravo to Netflix and the animation team, because they really did the Terminator right so far from what I've seen.
Yeah, this is the best thing since T2.
Yeah.
From the looks of it.
Yeah.
It's got the tone right. It's super serious. The artwork looks cool. So I'm excited to see what they do.
Get ready for those.
Another John Connor. Oh, we have to get John Connor again.
Get ready for those $70 NECA figures coming.
No, 70? 70? NECA's probably going to charge premium for that. Now, if they can do a Predator animated series, on top, bro.
Yeah. Hey, lots of activity happening on the channel. Before we just talk a little bit about our sponsors and affiliates, the San Diego Comic-Con is approaching, and so stay tuned to the channel with different updates, including the Toybox Chronicles that is live every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Pacific time, right here on the Shadows Knows Network. We are toy fans. We are toy collectors. I don't think you'd know that from Chet and I's background, and Mr. Storm with the massive Joe collection behind the scenes. Don't let it fool you. Dr. Brantley has 1,000 India Jones figures behind the
They're just not behind me at the moment.
They're just not behind him. But stay tuned, because there's going to be a lot of updates, what's happening, San Diego Comic-Con exclusives and stuff. But I think one thing that's really exciting is we're doing an upcoming 2-hour San Diego Comic-Con live stream between our brother channel, the Sarlacc Digest podcast, and Shadow Knows Network. That's on Friday, July 26th, starting at 6 p.m. Mr. Storm, I'm super excited for this partnership a dual live stream. What are you talking about? Comic-Con, man. What are your thoughts?
We are not just going to talk about comic. We're talking everything Comic-Con. We're going to run down some panels, run down some toy exclusives. We're going to run into any kind of sightings and everything. We're going to have special segments that I know myself, you and Dr. Brentley will remember. Secret Comic-Con stories that we haven't been able to tell. So.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Wait a minute. We've got the Shadow Man. Shadow has joined the presence tonight.
Well, it looks like we're being blacklisted. So well, no. All stories are open.
We're gonna run some stories. We might not tell the Jim Lee story, but there's some stories that we're gonna run down. There's one with Kermit the Frog that you got to hear. But also, it's just not going to be the Sorlac Digest guys are really hyped. It's going to be Dark Moocher. It's going to be over here. Scott Solo. We're thinking also a couple other members might pop in, but just a whole night. So if you come in, it's a Friday night. So if you're there at the show on Thursday night and you're coming in Friday night, you want to know what's going on Saturday and what's going on Sunday. We're going to run down the Hasbro fan stream. It'll be on the 25th. So that night of the 26th, everybody will be talking about those exclusive toys and how that portal works. So it's going to be something that will probably be able to be a 100% yearly kind of thing that we're going to run on and do. So I'm looking forward to it. They're looking forward to it. Lots of great plans. It's even going to be some giveaways, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. So stay tuned for the channel. And by the way, DP versus Jim, here's the leak.
Remember that one. Yeah. We got to keep that story tucked in.
We always appreciate you all tuning in. And if you haven't already, the assortment of content that's on the channel. So if you're just fans that are coming in and supporting and commenting, we appreciate you every Friday, or even if you don't watch it live with us, Pixels, Plastic, and Ink, but a multitude of other shows from Toybox Chronicles to Shadows Shoot Shot. If you're into pro wrestling, some hot takes, some exclusive match breakdowns, lots of pro wrestling, and it's hotter than it's ever been since the late 90s, early 2000s. And then a variety of other things from Chet's toy reviews and unboxing to a variety of other things. So really exciting stuff. So please stay tuned to the channel.
Shadow snapping on Chet tonight.
Speaking of toys.
No, I'm not sleepy.
I don't know. You might be sleeping.
Jesus.
But if you got the glasses on.
Yeah.
He slept through the whole podcast, actually, and it's AI. It's artificial intelligence. That's why the
you guys.
It was a robot. We were arguing with AI, and it was. Speaking of toys, again, lots of toys that are approaching San Diego Comic-Con. There's a lot of new releases, new pre-orders, Marvel, G.I. Joe, all that stuff. And so if you're a fan of because you can't go into any retail store and buy stuff now easily, but it is easy to pre-order and it is easy to buy online. And what better way to do it than going to Entertainment Earth?
On that fictional purchase, you get $45 off.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
That's unreal.
Whoever used that music or edited something like NSYNC would do for the 90s.
Best toy promo code out there. So hey, if you're gonna order anyway, use the code, save some money. And then also to our first and ever sponsor, the Mom and Pops Toys versus Games in Wilmington, California. Mr. Storm, as always.
Wilmington, California. Now we're going to also have a new reel in the next couple of weeks for Toy versus Games, so it'll be just like Entertainment Earth and everything we're shooting at now. But if you're looking just for, again, you support the big box stores, the online retailers. It's good to go in and support the smaller shops, whether they're comics or toys. Toys versus Games. Tony's wife, lovely individuals. They do a lot of community outreach. So your dollars really matter when you go in there. Get personal relationships, someone that you can, you feel good about purchasing from, and they'll remember your name. Can't get that from Target and Walmart. See our buddies, Toys versus Games, Wilmington, California. Tell them Pixels, Plastic, and Ink sent you.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Stay tuned to the channel. Thursday, Deadpool Wolverine. We might have a couple of reviews live to see our thoughts, as well as the entire world, their thoughts. But if you're here interested in our takes, otherwise, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Pacific time, Toybox Chronicles. We'll see you next week, everyone. Thanks for watching. Adios.